Right. Oh, so hey, thanks for being a part of Poly Role Models. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Angel, or online I'm Professor Sex. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, how long have you been polyamorous, or how long have you been practicing polyamory?
I discovered poly maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but I would say that I've been practicing or sort of poly space mentally and emotionally for 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Okay. What does your relationship dynamic look like?
So right now, my relationship dynamic looks like my thesis. I have one live-in partner, and I just got out of a relationship with another partner, so that was a little woundy. And I've got a few people
Sorry.
that I'm flirting with, but part of polyamory for me, like part of the ethical part, is being able to gauge where my boundaries for being able to put in time and emotion into a relationship are. And I've just noticed that as I'm in my last year of grad school and my thesis, like I haven't had the time to put into relationships. And so I sort of have decided that for the next semester and a half, while I wind this down,
Yeah.
I'm keeping my dive into new relationships. Like I've kind of drawn a boundary for myself on that. So
Okay. All right. Makes sense. All right. And what aspect of polyamory do you feel you excel at?
I have really good communication skills,
Okay.
patient. So tend to have a really, I tend to be really good at articulating my feelings and not getting so caught up in them that I have big emotional outbursts, or like I'm not a throw those plates when I'm angry type of person.
Yeah.
And so that it helps. It helps that I can really clearly articulate what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. It gives other people more tools to communicate with me.
Okay. All right. And what aspect of polyamory do you feel like you struggle with?
Um, I'm jealous. I get jealous. I think that comes from I've got like a lot of insecurities I'm dealing with, like body positivity issues and that kind of thing, and so I get in my head a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I'm doing a pretty okay job at like not putting that off on others and being really aware that that's a limitation that I have.
Okay.
But yeah, this myth that poly people don't jealous, like that's bananas, man.
Yeah.
I struggle with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, how do you feel like, or what do you do to overcome those struggles, or to like address
I
them?
think just knowing and being honest with myself, like listen, that's okay. It's just like any other emotion, and so just recognizing it when it comes up. And I don't let myself use the word jealousy when I'm talking about it.
Okay.
So what that does is it forces me to figure out what's really going on instead. So instead of going to my partner and saying like, "Oh, I'm really jealous about this girl that you're flirting with," or whatever, I can say, "Oh, well, you're flirting with this new girl, and she's different from me, and I'm feeling really insecure," or "you're flirting with this new girl and we haven't had a lot of time to connect and I'm feeling kind of left out." And so it kind of forces me to find more specific language, and that's been a really great way of overcoming and kind of working through, so I can decide like, is this jealousy me, or is this jealousy something that someone else is doing that needs to shift?
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, in terms of risk-aware or safer sex, what do you and your partners do to protect one another?
Well, I'm a sex educator, and so I am a dork about risk-aware sex conversations. I tend to be the person that, like, on the first date is like, well, this is the last time I was tested, and this is my status, and how about you? And look, I have a purse full of condoms, glow in the dark, like textured. So I tend to be really just vocal and out there, and I start by self-disclosing.
Yeah.
So I just let people know, like, this is my status, this is the last time I was tested, this is, what, like, who I do and don't use protection with. Like, I'm fluid bonded with my live-in partner, and so I communicate that, and then we just make decisions around that. But I feel like I model the information that I want back from partners by just starting with a disclosure of where I'm at.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Now, what is the worst mistake you've made in your polyamorous history, and how did you rebound from that mistake?
Um, I'd say like my poly record would be when I first was getting really started in practicing polyamory. I had a partner who was amazing. She and I really clicked. It was one of the all-time healthiest relationships I ever had. And I was struggling with a lot of emotion around poly. I was struggling with a lot of emotion around there was a potential this person was going to be long distance, and I was having emotions around that. And I thought I had to be like a poly expert. being honest with her about some of the stuff that was coming up for me that was really tough, I just pretended I was okay with everything and started withdrawing. And I ended up completely sabotaging the relationship, and we didn't speak for years because I broke her heart, and I just fucked the whole thing up. And then I took some time to reflect and change and grow, and I ended up reaching back out to her like 2 years later, and just coming clean about everything, about where I had been since then, and the things I had learned, and just asked if we could transition into like a friendship. And she was really gracious and wonderful, and we talked it through, and we're good now. But I had to really own up to just how I had been.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Thank you.
so what self identities are important to you, and how do you feel like being polyamorous intersects with or affects those identities?
I tell people that I'm queer when they ask. So I like queer because it's a great that there's something you need to know, but it doesn't tell you everything. And so for me, queer is kinky and poly and bisexual.
Okay.
Part of that to me. It's a part of how I choose partners. Like I can't date somebody who's not down because we're just going to be incompatible.
Yeah.
Way that that polyamorous folks approach relationships, and just the idea that you can't own another person, that other people aren't things. Even in relationships that I've been in that have monogamous looking, those poly like pillars have really served me well, and so they've just become a part of how I relate. So
Okay.
I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it does, absolutely. All right. Now, do you have any groups, projects, workshops, websites, blogs, anything that you're involved in that you'd like to promote?
Yeah, I'm doing all those things. I don't know how to say no. I do community sex ed here in Jacksonville. So we're like deep in the Bible Belt, and I'm really working hard to build a community of folks who are sex positive, a very inclusive sex positive community. So we do community sex ed every 2 weeks for free in this little anarchist coffee shop downtown. It's amazing. And I do workshops and lectures and one-on-one coaching. And I have a YouTube channel, and honestly, the best way for people to start is to just go to professorsex.com and start clicking on stuff and see what comes up, because I'm sort of all over.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time, and especially for sharing those resources. That sounds like that'll be really valuable to the people in the area where you live.
Yeah, I think we're doing great. We have a really good community growing. So
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.
you too.